Very pleased to be joined by an old friend of an old show that I used to do from Wrestling Observer Live. He is Mike Sempervive. Mike, it's been a minute. How are you today?
I can't complain, man. How are you?
I'm doing well. Yeah, I'm enjoying doing the freelance stuff now. So having some fun and getting to chat the world of professional wrestling again. That was something that wasn't offered to me my last couple of years of my last spot. And it's been a great year to be able to talk pro wrestling. And when I set this up, I wasn't necessarily anticipating we'd have the match of the year 24 hours before we chatted, but holy hell. Daniel Bryan against Hangman Page goes 60 minutes with a draw. I don't know if that is necessarily match of the year, but they certainly made a good candidacy for it on Wednesday night.
Oh, absolutely. No question. And I can't believe, though, you don't want to start off talking about Shad Khan being at the show and then being so inspired by that match. He went out and immediately fired Urban Meyer and said, I could do this because I'm so inspired right now. But yeah, it was a hell of a match. And I mean, what can you say? Bryan Danielson is otherworldly. He's you could argue he's one of the greatest professional wrestlers of all time. When you take everything and you look at who do you take? Lou Thez, and you look at great drawing cards like Jim Londos and Hulk Hogan and Steve Austin, and great wrestlers like your Thezes and your Dory Funk Juniors and your Jack Briscoes. And like Daniel Bryan's all of that and has been able to do it in these times and was never, yes, Ring of Honor gave him a platform and made him a superstar in their world, but their world was very small at the time. It's, hey, look where Ring of Honor's at now. It's not very big right now, but he goes to WWE and, anybody that saw him Ring of Honor, anybody that saw him in Japan or England or Germany or wherever he had wrestled before, they looked at him and go, oh God, what's going to happen here? And we all saw what happened there. And they tried to put him down. They tried to hold him down. They tried to have him do other things. They tried to slot him. They tried to do all of these things to him. And he overcame all of it because that's what the fans wanted. And his work was worth it. And the man himself is worth it. And he's one of those people that, to me, he won pro wrestling. If you can win your job and win your career, he won. And yes, there's the injuries. Yes, there's this. Yes, there's that. But you know what? He got the girl. He got the money. He got the respect. He got everything. He got everything. And yes, he paid an incredible physical toll for that, and that's what happens with athletics. It can happen in life. You can be brilliant throughout your career and have Alzheimer's, early on stage Alzheimer's, and that's it. So there's always going to be something in some sort of job, but other than the injuries, which of course are substantial, he won. There's always going to be a sacrifice for winning. And to me, it was incredible. And that match he didn't wrestle for how long? He wrestled in WWE this year for a couple of months and then was gone for a while. And then you could call him the wrestler of the year. If you wanted to make that case, easy. Yeah, Shingo's had more great matches. This person's done this or this person's done that. But man, last night was just another incredible display. And on top of it, the best part of that match to me was the fact that when it got down to the very end of it, it wasn't Adam Page and the cattle mutilation barely holding on for dear life and having that championship that he just won, right there on the tip of his fingers about to slip away. He was on the offense. And the AEW champion at the end of the day looked strong. He was rallying at the end. He was looking good at the end of that match. He's a finisher. He's a champion. And Daniel Bryan, you do that with other people, you may not be able to pull off that story. But with Daniel Bryan, it was easy to make it happen because Daniel Bryan just goes, yeah, so you wouldn't have pinned me. You wouldn't have submitted me. You wouldn't have did anything. Let's do it again. So it being able to go an hour and still have that story, and there wasn't the peril for the champion or the baby face. To me, it was, that's as great as it gets for, to me, a time limit draw in this day and age. That is not a Tokyo Dome main event. It's not a WrestleMania main event. If you want to go, that type of 60, mentality of action and athleticism and all that sort of stuff, and the Okada, Omega, Naito, that type of level stuff. Other than that, this is the best story to me you can absolutely tell by going an hour. I mean, it's one of the best draws, and I don't know how long. And Ring of Honor's tried some. We've seen some good ones, but to me, this was this was outstanding.
It really was. And one of the things that I really liked was that they got near falls and they got everyone to bite on it. And I'm doing some kind of stuff on the side with a wrestling promotion out here, and they tape on Wednesdays and they show AEW at the bar. And like the waitresses who I don't think have ever watched wrestling before were gasping at some of the moves and stuff. Like they were invested in it. And one of the things I like, that buckshot lariat at the end, I think was the first time he hit that. So like his big mega finisher, and you're not getting a bunch of kickouts out of that. Like they were able to tell a story in that match and able to get people biting on near falls without kind of bastardizing everyone's finish and stuff like that. Like it was art. It was perfect.
Yeah.
Everything about it was perfect.
Yes. And it's proof too that, pro wrestling, somebody may watch it and not watch it again. Somebody may watch it and still poke fun at it at the end. But when you actually have a really well-worked professional wrestling match, it's easy to draw people in. It's like a sporting event or a play or a TV show. I mean, somebody sits there and watches for long, you're going to catch them, and again, you may not keep them forever, but that's one of the things where they could be wrapped in for a second and they may make fun of like, yeah, remember Georgie Animal Steel or the Bushwhackers or this or that. But it's like, if that comes up, like, yeah, that was really good. You know what I mean? Even those people can't deny what it is. So again, it's just, he's brilliant. The booking of that, the match agenting of that and the booking of that match laid out was perfect for the spots they wanted to tell. And I'm sure Daniel Bryan and Adam Page, especially Daniel Bryan, deserves a lot of the credit as the heel in that match and the experienced veteran that was probably calling a lot of it. That, again, I don't know how much, I would assume much of that match was improv as it went along. It's not going to be written out move for move, and that credit goes to Daniel Bryan. So just brilliant, absolutely brilliant stuff.
Yeah, it really was. And you brought up something earlier that I hadn't really thought about. I keep forgetting that he had this injury hiatus for a little bit where he was the general manager of SmackDown and all of that. Like we were maybe not as many advances in modern science away from not having this, I guess, third act of Daniel Bryan's career that is kind of really solidifying him as one of the greatest of all times. I think we would have thought that before, but now this last chapter, it's kind of different, very different human beings, but it's kind of like Shawn Michaels, where if he doesn't come back from that back injury, we think of him as a good wrestler, but kind of a dick. And now he comes back and has this amazing run. Not that we would have thought Daniel Bryan was a dick or anything, but I think this back part here is really solidifying the greatness that is Bryan Danielson.
Oh my God, absolutely. And we're just so lucky with medicine in general. When you see Sting in I remember when Ultimo Dragon, remember when they botched his elbow surgery way back in 98 or whatever it was, or I guess it would have been after 98, but it wouldn't have been because WCW was a WCW approved doctor that ended up botching it. It's like, we'll never see that guy again. And then he ends up coming back. And yeah, it didn't go the way a lot of people may have wanted it to go in WWE, but it was like, man, Dragon came back. Mm-hmm. And there were a couple other cases, Fit Finlay getting hurt, having the injury that he had going through the table with Brian Knobbs that, cut tendons and all that. And he had numbness. And I think he still has numbness from like the knee down or something like that. But I mean, when it came to head injuries and neck injuries, it was like, well, Edge is gone for good. Mm-hmm. And, this person and that, but Kurt Angle, and they've all come back, and some cases, better than others, maybe some shouldn't have, but to be able to have these people back and in, good shape, and Daniel Bryan at the top of that list because he had so much to give still a ridiculous amount because he was in WWE, and always the thought of, man, if he got out of WWE just for that one last thing, and it didn't look like we were going to get that. And because of his contract status, they wouldn't release him, but they wouldn't clear him. And it's like, we may have lost that, and salute to Daniel Bryan, but instead, it's just, we get this, and it's, we've had so many incarnations and they've all been great. If you saw him pre-ROH days and early ROH days on the indie scene, he was great. He stood out. He was amazing, fantastic, and then you go through the ROH era and the PWG era and everything associated, they kind of spider webs off of that. And then with WWE, what he was able to accomplish in what felt like several lifetimes there and incarnations of what they wanted to make him and what they, what he was and what position he was in. And then now with this, it's an embarrassment of riches we're getting out of this guy's career. And I hope his body holds up. And more than that, I hope his insides hold up brain wise and muscle wise and everything else. And he's able to stay together and have a really long, awesome, incredible life because I want to see him coach. I want to see him do interviews. It's like watching Brett, it's for anything, Brett and some of his life experiences. I don't think Daniel Bryan's would, I don't think anybody's going to be in the family like, hey, I'm getting married, and it'll be the first they hear about it or anything. But hey, it's like, to me, it's the same thing. I can hear Brett talk. I can see him do interviews forever. I can hear him talk about wrestling philosophy, about politics, about anything. I can listen to him talk about it. And the same thing goes with Daniel Bryan. And he's one of those guys that can. So, oh God, I hope he lasts.
Well, and I think that's what makes him so valuable to AEW now, because you do have a lot of these young guys, and you could not convince me that Hangman Page is not a better wrestler for having gone 60 minutes now with Daniel Bryan. And when you're building up a company and talking about these pillars of this company, having guys like Bryan and Punk and Sting and even Billy Gunn around, just that has to be a good thing.
Well, that's all the stand up for WWE people that, want to plant flags and battle over every stupid little thing. And it's like, oh, they get Big Show for. What's he doing over there? I don't know. Maybe teaching the few big guys they have how to like work in this world and how to come across and how to act.
Right.
What's Christian doing there? He's just hanging out like a geek with the best friends. You think that's all he's doing there?
Mm-hmm.
It's like, and all of these guys, it's like, there's reasons that they're there. And yeah, is the paycheck one of them? Sure. Is their name a reason why? Absolutely. Of course. But it's what they want to pass on. Billy Gunn, a great example of trying to set his kids up. And I mean, Colton and Austin now coming out of their shells a little bit. They're going to utilize those guys more. I mean, they're natural. They have their father's personality. How great is it that he gets to be there and help his kids along? How great for his kids that he gets to be there in an environment where it's not looked down upon. It's not like, oh God, this helicopter old pro wrestling dad flying around here trying to get his sons over. No. He's there and people are happy that he's there. And all of those older guys, this whole roster, how many of them were on TV? And no offense to because I watch all the time, Fight TV or IWTV or any of these, streaming services, that doesn't count. How many times have you been in front of 15,000 people and had to worry about time cues and had to worry about hard cams and had to worry about positioning and lots of different things. And all of that stuff can only come in experience in this day and age in wrestling. You don't have that opportunity. You don't get to cut promos in local cities over and over again. So you could do a promo in just 2 minutes, 28 seconds, like it's nothing. Arn Anderson could do that. Ric Flair could do that. Tully Blanchard, because they did that every single day. Every single week, they had to cut promos. They got to do it in different positions in front of different crowds and acting different ways against different people every night. These guys don't get the chance to do that. So the only thing you can do is bring on people as agents, is bring on people from behind, for who have experience and to try to help these kids along the best way you can behind the scenes. And I think when you look at what QT Marshall has done, when you look at any, when it comes to the Nightmare Factory, other associated, wrestling schools and people who are helping these kids out, when you look at what Darby has accomplished or MJF, and those guys had a little bit more experience. They were in, was it Gabe's system there, Evolve, so they had a little bit more kind of on the ball and more experience there. But when you look at Jungle Boy, 400 people in Reseda or whatever it is, like, again, even with his pedigree, it's like you can't learn this stuff overnight. And you see how much more comfortable he's got. Yeah, the promos aren't perfect, but look at the rest of these guys and where they're at right now. And to me, I don't know. Again, there's a lot of things you can criticize AEW over, but bringing in these folks, I mean, we haven't heard of one problem. Have you heard of one issue whatsoever? Any beef with anybody about somebody old? No, hell no. Jerry Lynn is I believe revered there, who else? I mean, Jeff Jones is there doing work. Sanjay Dutt is over there doing work. I mean, they got dudes who have experience. That's the same thing in WWE too. When people are criticized, oh, Kevin Owens is going to stick around and stay, or Gargano might stick around and stay, and Joe did stay, and it's like, okay, think about this for a second. Your life is not everybody else's, so you can't put yourself in those shoes, but think about this. They've made money. This is a secure thing. Sure, they can be cut at any time, but maybe they want to work with like their friends, Adam Pearce or Steve Corino or the people that are there. And you think about that and it's like, somebody's got to be. You can hate WWE all you want, but like, do you want everybody to go away who's actually got some knowledge of what's going on there? I don't blame Jason Jordan or Abyss for the matches, it's like they're the agents on this stuff, but I know it's Vince, but I'm happy those guys are there able to do something. I'm happy Adam Pearce is there and maybe able to pass on some knowledge because he didn't get his due when he was wrestling. He didn't get enough support from me, and from a lot of people. He got enough support from me. I always liked the guy, but he's got so much to give. What do you want to see him leave there and not help out young people that are already going to be hampered coming up from NXT with all these pressures and all this nonsense? Now, I mean, oh God, there's a place for it.
No, absolutely there is. And if nothing else, Billy Gunn can let these kids know how to be insanely fit at 53 years old. Now, there might be some alternative nutritional things going on there, but I mean, to each their own. Whatever he's doing,
cosmetic business, brother.
Right? Yeah, exactly. Yeah, totally. Like, what is he cheating someone out of it? No, of course not. But when you look at the landscape of pro wrestling right now, like obviously WWE is making money hand over fist, but it does really seem like AEW from a product standpoint is kind of head and shoulders above everyone else right now. Are you in that camp as well?
Yeah, it is. And that's, New Japan has had the pandemic issues. Mm-hmm. I think, if everything in a perfect world, and it's hard now because you got Punk and you got Danielson and, you got some other advantages there now for AEW, but like, to me, you take the rosters and you say, is everything perfect in both locations? I'm probably taking New Japan. I'm probably taking the New Japan Wrestle Kingdom show over, All Out or, whatever,
right.
I can't remember. That's where I'm at right now. It's like, I'm old from the Bash era. I think that's their number one pay-per-view, but you know what I'm saying? But because of the questionable booking with Gedo, because of the pandemic and all the ways they've been hampered, because of all that stuff, how is it not AEW? Mm-hmm. Again, even if you don't love everything that they do, and there's things you can point to and blow holes in, but who else is in competition with them? You can't say GCW because it's a different kind of ball game,
right,
that you got going on right there. Same thing with MLW. So you can't really include them. The Japanese companies are incredibly hampered right now. Rev Pro has been hampered, so we're not getting those shows. CMLL has been a mess for God knows how long. So, there's AAA shows that are good, but anything that happened to Triple Mania that set the world on fire that people are still talking about, a couple weeks later, no, at least not in most of North America. In Mexico they are, but not, in Canada and the States, it happened. Cool. FTR and Lucha, and that was kind of it. Mm-hmm. So to me, it's almost by default. And then when you look at the roster, you look how they do things, you look at the big matches they've built up to, how those matches have come to be, and what the result has been out of it. It's almost unquestionable. I'll take somebody to tell me that, hey, I'm forgetting about somebody, but I don't know how you can argue that. You can't.
Right. No, exactly. And yeah, like with New Japan, I credit them for at least trying a couple of things. Like Evil didn't work, but just because it didn't work doesn't mean it wasn't worth trying. Right. And Show currently, it is not working. Basically anything Bullet Club, not necessarily working.
And that's the thing. And that was, Evil should have been the wake-up call, because you went and did something that you've always done, that has always gotten heat with the Bullet Club, that has always, even though it's been tired, you've gotten a reaction. Your fans have not turned on you. All that, all that sort of stuff. American fans are different. Your native fans, certainly, they groaned, they growled, but they're coming back. They were still into it. And then you had no reaction.
Right.
You can't cheer this. You can't boo. You can't hiss. You can't. And then you saw it very bare. It was very quiet.
Yeah.
And it was very not good. And it exposed, it was a big shining light on everything. Okay, don't do this. You got to make some changes. They have not made those changes. In fact, they have doubled down more because of the split. And the split was going to happen. I thoroughly believe that if nothing had happened with the pandemic, at some point we would have gotten this Jay White-led Bullet Club, and we would have gotten the purple and black, version of the Bullet Club with Evil and with those guys. And so they were going to continue on with that plan anyway, and they've done that. But the problem is then you bring Show in. Mm-hmm. And now he's doing the Evil bit, and it's the same response, and it's just, so that's where Robbie Eagles, LP, the development of Show and Yo, their juniors. I mean, so many of the thing, or they're young lions, they have so many things that work that it's like you obviously you can't throw the baby out with the bathwater, but you kind of look at the other stuff and it's so bad and it's so cringeworthy and it's so tired and it's been where, you know, it's easy to call for regime change. And in some ways I wish there would be. And I've been against, that for a long time. I had not, a lot of people, the first time the Bullet Club jumped in, they were done with New Japan. Yeah, God, it's American stuff. Yeah, calm down. I've lived through some bad New Japan years. I lived through the worst of New Japan years, and they came back. So there's a lot, they got a lot of, ways to go, but you just can't, you just can't do this over and over again and not have diminishing returns. And unfortunately, they've had the diminishing returns. And if you want to do regime change and get somebody else out of there while this is going on, to slide somebody in who, again, it can be an easy transition. You don't have to fire Gato or Jotto for that matter, and then have the line go of Dick Togo is going to be upset and this person and that person. It's going to cause chaos. To me, you can transition and make a transition where you get some new eyeballs in. And that's going to be a question for AEW down the line with Tony Khan, is going to be when you're tired, when you're out of ideas, when you've hit the wall, when you're Dusty in 88, in Crockett, right, or whoever, are you going to have enough knowledge? Are you going to keep your ears open? Are you going to look in the mirror? Are you going to listen to people? Are you going to feel the environment? No, I'm going to step back. We need new eyes on this product. I need to step back. And is he going to be able to do that? Because he is so controlling. He is into everything. I'm going to take this over. I'm going to do this and X, Y, and Z. And you know what? He did that at the end of the first year. And what happened? Everything got better. At least that's how it's been framed, that, and he has said it, and I'd have no reason to disagree and to not believe him, that, yeah, he wanted tighter control and wanted to make sure there was more of a central thing going on that somebody was to be the one to answer to. And since he owns it, he wanted to answer to himself. Perfect. Makes sense. But when that time comes to hand it off, are you going to be able to stand back? One, are you going to be able to hand it off? Two, you're going to be able to stand back and just assist and not be too like, well, why don't we do this? Or did this work before? You got to give people time to make mistakes, and you got to give the baby deer time to get on its feet on the ice and make it across. And is he going to be able to do that? That is going to be a fascinating thing, because what we know about pro wrestling is they don't. Right. Usually it's the owner that has to force the issue and make the move. And it usually doesn't happen. So that to me is fascinating. Yeah. Down the line, whenever that time comes, what happens here and who that person would be that steps up and actually leads the helm, leads the charge.
Well, and one thing that gives me confidence that they would be able to handle it differently is they've already handled some things differently. Like looking at the death match and how that was a great match until the last, we'll say 10 seconds of it. And then, boop, and I feel like, as we transition to the WWE portion of the conversation where we get to yell and scream a bunch, I feel like if that happened in WWE, you'd be like, no, fuck you. That was awesome. How dare you guys? And now in AEW, it's like, yeah, we screwed that up. Sorry, dude. Let's just, we'll make a joke about it. We'll still like take some of the things seriously and we'll just move on. And everyone forgets about it. And you talk about like that central person and what do you do when you've run out of ideas? Speaking of WWE, how do we fix what's going on in WWE right now? Because we talked about the best things in pro wrestling, and they didn't come up once. Not NXT, not SmackDown, not Raw. That seems like a problem. And I get they're making a bunch of money, but it still seems like a bit of an issue to me.
I would argue, and accept any argument that says that Brock Lesnar and Roman Reigns and Paul Heyman is the best thing in all of professional wrestling, hands down. Forget about your matches. Forget about this, that, and the third. This is pro wrestling, sports entertainment, TV show. It's the best thing. I'll buy that. They're awesome. They're awesome. I got nothing else. Yeah. I got nothing else. At least with NXTs, there were takeovers or this or that made you go, okay, well, with NXT 2.0, different mindset, different philosophy. I mean, there's nothing but Braun Breaker, and as good as Breaker and Ciampa, as good as that is, and as nice as that is, and I didn't see the second match, first match, great, awesome, but that's it. SmackDown, there is nothing else. Raw, there's nothing. They're going back to the well, and I feel as though it's Bobby Lashley's season again. I'm getting that impression, although now that Kevin Owens is fully resigned and everybody knows that, maybe they're going that direction. I don't know, but there is nothing that feels exciting. There's nothing that, exhilarating about the product. There's no stars. And that's the problem is there's pro wrestling. God damn it. Peter, this. You need to have main eventers. You need to have upper mid card. You need to have a mid card, lower mid card, curtain jerkers and jobbers. You got to have all those things. You got to have managers. You got to have these pieces of the puzzle. You have Brock Lesnar and Roman Reigns. Then you have Seth, Orton, Big E, Owens. Everybody, almost everybody who else is somebody is right there. Same thing. It really, unfortunately, right now, it was Becky, Charlotte was up there. Now they're in here with Seth and Owens and everything. It's like, but the drop between the top and that level, and then there's nothing. It's just barren. And, that's the one thing about professional wrestling booking that WWE doesn't do, where it's like, how did Becky get over? She won like 10 matches in a row. And that's how and they forgot whatever it was they were doing, where they were caught off guard in the fact that, like, wow, fans like to root for a winner.
Right.
What a surprise. Like, if somebody beats, Dante Martin's got to beat Fuego del Sol. You know what I'm saying? And then he's got to beat Colton Gunn. And then he's got to beat whoever. And then but he loses to MJF. But MJF loses to Darby. Like, there's levels to this shit. And there's thought that goes by. You can't just keep going. This is what we're going to do. Now it's 6 o'clock. I don't like it, pal. We're doing. It doesn't work. It doesn't work. And this is where anybody that's heard me with Brian Alvarez on Observer Live, the thing has come up about, well, they're going to Braun Breaker. They're going to ruin Braun Breaker. Well, no, Braun Breaker is going to be in the main event at WrestleMania. Two things can be right.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And I think Braun Breaker is a special talent, put him over, but like anybody else, they've messed up everybody. They've made missteps with everybody. And it wasn't their fault. Of course, it was the fans' fault. It was this, it was that, it was the third. It's the talent's fault. They didn't buy in enough, whatever bullshit they want to come up with. It's like, no, you have no stars. You're not enticing anybody. You look at your 12 to 34 numbers, and everybody always talks about 18 to 49. And look, for real advertising and TV reasons, that absolutely matters. Don't act like it doesn't matter. It matters everywhere. The only place it doesn't matter, frankly, is TV news, where they want people 50 plus who are in their money making years, who are in their silver years. Like, there's a reason all those ads are there for lots of different things, from investments right down to, like, adult diapers. There's a reason those things are there. But like, when you look at what is not being built in pro wrestling from the ages of 12 to like 34, it kills me, because this is where we're getting our lifers from. This is what I make my life off of, for heaven's sakes. Like, we got to create these people, and WWE is the biggest one to do it. And no kid cares. No kid. You never see kids with wrestling shirts. If you do, it's always something else. I mean, it's back to being how you can have such a niche thing way out in the open like you have it is just amazing.
Right.
And WWE has allowed everything to slip back into a niche thing, unfortunately. And they're not building those people, and they're not invested, and they don't care. If you don't have somebody by the age, frankly, of, 34 years old, you're not getting them. If you can be a kid that liked wrestling and you through college and whatever, and you start a family, your wife doesn't like it, your kids don't like it, you're probably going to stop watching it. If you're not that dedicated of a fan, if we can get these people, like, there's the 35 to 49 demo, you got to get them to 35. Once they're in there, as NXT ratings prove, you can keep them forever. Like, they're 70, what was the median age on that show that one week? 64 years old.
Yeah, it was like 64 or 65. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, once you get them, you're going to get them, but like, they're not building anything. And it's like when everybody, the ratings are still this and they're making this money and all that, they're going to make their money. I got that. But when it comes to the ratings and some other things, it's like, that's not the issue. The issue is there's a group that doesn't care. So when this group goes, like, what do they have? What did you build? So they've been very lucky. Brock Lesnar has been around now for, how long's it been? How long can you
coming up on 10 years from in his post UFC thing. Like, That
But
debut was like
before that,
2012. But yeah, so yeah, 20 years then, I guess.
and now they can't call guys back anymore.
Right.
Like who can you call back that's a star that's going to move something?
Mm-hmm.
Randy Orton hasn't gone away yet. So he can't, it's like Edge, you've been lucky, but Edge hasn't moved ratings. People are happy he's back. They love seeing him perform, but he hasn't moved anything. And that's a scary proposition because he was a generation that's already done,
Yeah.
in theory is done and is behind you. It's like they have nothing. Whereas you look at AEW and they got tons. How will it go for them? I don't know, but boy, they got levels and they got layers.
Yeah, no, for sure. And when you brought up Braun is going to main event WrestleMania and they're going to screw him up, and two things can be true. Exhibit A is Bianca Belair. That was the most unscrew upable moment in wrestling of the last decade, aside from Kofi. She should have been at every school that they go to, every whatever, on every poster. She is just oozing star. And now, and we're not even at the next WrestleMania yet. It is you couldn't do that if you tried to screw that up. And they somehow found a way to do it. And it's everything. And I think that last point you made there is great. I was thinking about this when Punk and Cole and Bryan all came to AEW. I was like, I don't know what WWE can do right now to create this feeling, aside from raiding New Japan or something like that. Okada pops up on Raw. But even if that happened, we'd be like, fuck, they're going to screw this up too. I don't know what WWE can do to get that feeling back for me as a wrestling fan.
The only thing they can do is putting Paul Heyman in a position where he wouldn't be messed with. And it's impossible because for all the negative, there's negatives of Paul Heyman, but one thing he'll do is there's usually something stupid. Remember the Bobby Lashley, the whole wedding bit with Lana, as that's going on, and that was awful television. It was awful in every way, but this is taking place. This stupid thing is happening. Meanwhile, Malachi or Aleister Black is starting to be positioned. Ricochet is starting to be positioned. Buddy Murphy starting to be positioned. The Viking Raiders are starting to be positioned. So it's there's all that nonsense going on, but then you have these things moving where, okay, we can start putting some things in motion here. And then you saw what happened. So to me, unless you give somebody essentially full control, over something like a Paul Heyman, somebody with the experience, with a great mind and seeing things in different ways, and let them build and make mistakes, but try to build guys and build characters. Unless you do that, that's the only thing they can do. And they're always they have tons of talent there. They loads for everybody they got rid of. I mean, they have loads of talent there and lots of clay that they can make things out of. It's just because of Vince. And because of the production, and which has gotten worse. I mean, that's what we used to make fun of Impact, WCW. It's that's one WWE would never make these mistakes. And you see it all. You cut to a shot where there's nothing. The overlays of the music and the audio are screwed up. It's just things that you would never have expected out of WWE have happened, and they need to change. And
right,
will it? At some point it will. It's going to have to. I think. I don't think he can live forever, and if he can't, I don't think Kevin Dunn can live for. So it's something at some point it's got to change, right? But I don't know when that's going to be. And by the time it happens, again, they're never going out of business. They're not going anywhere. But again, fascinating going forward too. Because one thing, and we probably don't have time today, but the thought of them being sold to NBC Universal or to somebody, to me, it's NBC Universal. There's no other person besides Xfinity that I could see doing this. There's others I could see. You could could put together a group, Disney, but it doesn't fit because there's a lot of people have, Brian Lass has pointed it out, and other people have. You're going to see a Roddy Piper or an Undertaker walking around Disney. It doesn't work, but you could, to me, it's and again, the relationship they have with NBC Universal too. And that's going to be the other thing too, is that when it happens, essentially. And that's going to be really weird if and when that ever happens, because we've seen companies who have no idea what to do with wrestling and take wrestling people that they are sold on, put them in charge, and it doesn't work. So fascinating as the next 10 years go forward here, including how many people are actually going to be here listening to us talk about this. This, is wrestling, the kids that are 12, 15, 17, are they going to still be around, hyping up watching wrestling? And I have a feeling it's going to come a lot more from the AEW side than is WWE side. So
yeah, a lot more Darby Allin face paint than Rey Mysterio masks or anything like that. Last one for you here. You've been generous with your time, and I know we got to get you going, but I didn't want to
That's
leave
a nice way for you to say I talk a lot.
Oh no, it's great. No, it's like the cool thing is talking about people who do this is that like I have a bunch of questions here, and I already have written like part two beside a few of these. So I'll be bugging you again soon. But Ring of Honor, final battle goes down last weekend, and boy, it seems like that was the final battle. I know they're saying they're going to recalibrate or whatever and try to come back, but I mean, there's a lot of talent out there if they want it. But it has the feeling that this was it for Ring of Honor. When we look back, A, do you agree? And B, when we look back on Ring of Honor, what is kind of the legacy of ROH?
Second one first. The legacy of Ring of Honor shows itself at the top of every wrestling company, and will continue for a little bit as long as Daniel Bryan and CM Punk and Samoa Joe and Adam Pearce and you name it, Steve Corino, and because he was there. Who am I forgetting? Jimmy Jacobs being in a position of power in Impact. You just go through almost every big name on that list, and they're going to have influence for a long time. And wrestling, it just was it was the bridge, because everything died, and it was the one flower, it was the one seed that dropped that actually came up and became this big, beautiful, giving tree that we've all been able to eat off of, and we're going to continue to eat off of for quite some time. If it wasn't for Ring of Honor, I mean, WCW was dead. ECW was dead. All Japan was essentially dead. New Japan was essentially dead, in a lot of ways, certainly spiritually at that time. And like K1 kickboxing and Pride and the UFC and all these things, man, wrestling. But they had these new athletes with new minds and young kids who didn't know any better. And there were veterans that wanted to help that did know better. And they were driven guys, and Gabe and Doug Gentry, and obviously Kerry Sulkin's money being pumped into it to help, and his passion for everything. If we didn't have that, I don't know what we'd be eating right now. We're eating some pretty good fruit because of those guys. And sometimes you get a bad, bruised, nasty, bitter one. But for the most part, what they gave, we wouldn't have what we had. We wouldn't have AEW. We wouldn't have had the appreciation for what New Japan became if the ROH fan didn't do that. They took what the ECWA was kind of, and these small group, all these promotions that ran Philly and Jersey and North Delaware and everything, and they blew it up, and they were able to create your Defies and your PWGs, and it made those things mean more because, again, the buzz and everything that comes along to it. Is it over? Yeah, I think in a lot of ways it is. It's now back to being a super indie. And it's going to be PWG on steroids in some ways, in that they'll probably have 4 or 5 regular guys. I think they should have like 6 people under contract, frankly, so that you can always continue on a story, but we'll see what happens there. Right. But you just pay guys, and they're going to bring them in, and maybe that's the way of the world right now. It's better for them to do that. It makes for hotter TV, makes it tough to book sometimes, and consistency and this, that, and the other. And you're going to have your headaches with it. But man, if you can get good ratings that way, if it gets more attention on Sinclair every week, if it, that's the one thing they have going for them, is they still have money behind them. They still have a product. They still have a TV show, even though it's difficult to see. It's just, can you get some buzz? Yeah. And everybody, I think, has been at fault there. Everybody's been at fault there in a lot of ways. Not talent as much, but when it comes to management, the ownership, how they promote, the buzz, the lack of it, something's got to change. They got to regenerate themselves, and they've got to reinvigorate their fan base, and to make sure that those ROH letters are not they just don't turn into what the NWA has, and that's And I don't mean that as a dig or anything, but it is what it is. On my wall. That's my era. That's what I grew up with. I love seeing the NWA name. But what does it mean? It doesn't mean anything anymore.
Right.
So hopefully Ring of Honor can reestablish itself. It can be kind of what it was. It can help feed WWE and AEW and be high profile stuff and high profile weekends, and just the addition of another, more great shows, on weekends. And that's probably what it's going to have to be for them. Going to be interesting to see how that, with your GCWs, with your places that, have, strong fan bases, like, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, oh boy, it's a lot of places in the world to run, but like, it's not easy to get internet pay-per-view attention and things like that and get revenue being driven from that. So again, it's a very interesting time in wrestling business wise that way too, when you start peeling it back a little bit.
Mike, this was awesome, man. Thanks for doing this. Where can people find you?
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter at Sempervive, Sempervive, stands for Always Alive. Yes, that's I'm usually dead most of the time, sleepwalking through Wrestling Observer Live, but you can listen to me there every single day, 3 p.m. with Brian Alvarez, Eastern Time, 12 p.m. Pacific, Mondays through Fridays. Also, my Mid-Atlantic Championship podcast that I love to do at Mid-Atlantic Pod on Twitter, on Facebook, on most of your forms of social media. I do most of the things on Twitter there. And it's just pro wrestling. There's no politics. There's no nonsense. It is stuff, factoids and video clips and audio clips from Mid-Atlantic Championship Wrestling, the history of Jim Crockett Promotions. Heavy on the 80s, of course, because it's where the most video is. And well, it's awesome. So, yeah. But I really invite people to check that out. I love doing that sort of thing. There's no modern times get into there. It's fantastic. But the Adam and Mike Big Audio Nightmare, which you can also find at f4wonline.com as well, too. I've been doing a show with Adam Summers talking about Japanese wrestling. Now we are the longest tenured show talking about anything Japan. I think anywhere, I believe, I think 2003 is when we started the Pressu Power Hour. 2004, we were over at Brian's site in 06. He started the site in 05. We've been there since 06. We were the first show that wasn't Brian and Vinny, and we've been doing it ever since. So you can catch me in those places, and who knows where I'll pop up. I'm for hire too, in case you want to throw some money my way as well too. You don't have to do that. I'm doing this for free every time though, because I really appreciate you bringing me on. I really appreciate you. It's not easy. It's a lot easier to talk about what you want to now that you're on your own doing your own thing. But it's it wasn't easy trying to tell people you're going to spend a little bit of time in your segment talking about pro wrestling when there's all these other things that your bosses wanted you to talk about. So I appreciate you having me on in that realm as well too. In this one, I hope it builds well for you, and I'll be here for you, my man.
Awesome. I appreciate it. It was fun talking with you then. It was fun talking with you now, man. Thanks for doing this. And yeah, I'll be bugging you again soon, because I got a lot of part 2s on here.
Hey, absolutely. Love to do it.